Hello, Night Nation. I'm Trace Trylko from the Sons of UCF. Eric Lopez is on assignment. This week, we're joined by Kyle Nash of the Black and Gold Banneret. Welcome, everyone, to Around the Kingdom. Kyle, hello. Welcome in.
An honor, joy, and privilege to jump in as I participate in the fastest UCF show around. And standing in for Elo, may his situation go as good as we can hope. But I'm the one that makes out like a bandit here coming in to go around the kingdom with you, Trace Trylko.
Your flattery will get you everywhere. Before we get going with all of that, Kyle, let us welcome in Adam Eaton from the Sons of UCF. Keeps an eye on the clock, keeps us on our toes. Adam, hello.
Trace, hello. Kyle, welcome. I figure in your honor, Kyle, I'll call this the backwards hat show, as I will turn my hat backwards as well. You and I can be backwards hat brothers, and you and Trace can spar here for the next 30 minutes.
Hey, this is a shout out to my first appearance on the Sons a number of years back with you and Mike. So I'm glad you got the reference.
Here we go.
There we go. Thank you, Adam. All right. It's a wrap, Kyle. Spring camp for UCF has over now. It's over. A couple of weeks of this, different era. No more Gus Malzahn clamping down on the media. Things a little more open this spring. What were your big takeaways from this spring camp for UCF football?
Well, beyond you not needing a lightsaber to do battle with Coach Malzahn this time around. No, listen, joking aside with that, I know a lot of people may accuse Scott Frost of coach speak, but I really think they don't know everything they need to know yet. I don't think this is all smoke and mirrors and hiding, and that there's a lot that they're still learning. They don't know. I'm sure you've been over on this show, no receiver with a catch last year and all these other and sundry things. But the biggest thing for me, the guy famous for UCF fast Trace Trylko is talking about getting dudes into the weight room. Frankly, that's what I want to hear with the way that the defensive front has struggled to stop the run. So that's kind of a positive, I'll be honest, that I took from all of it. I don't know where you sit on that, but that's where I live, man.
You know, spring is, all possibilities for the Knights, right? Coming off a 4-8 season, the return of Scott Frost. I did find it refreshing, but I enjoyed Frost the first time around as well.
Same.
You know, he was coming in off the 0-12. There was success, a bowl game in 2016. Of course, we know what happens in 2017. So, it was all really kumbaya for the Scott Frost era. He comes in at a much different time. He is a different coach, but I found him to be refreshing and candid. I know there's always some coach speak. I like the fact that we got to speak with all of the assistant coaches over the course of spring camp. And, with so much roster turnover, it's getting to know guys. And I know it's 6, 7, 8 minutes, but it's a little window into who they are. And I leave buoyed over the course of the summer now that there is some hope now with this Scott Frost team going into the fall.
Nothing beats being buoyed by a little bit of news. I can't front on that in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And I'll say this. He's also managing expectations, Trace Trylko. He's not promising another undefeated season up front. That's been clear from moment one. And I think that's a smart thing to do, to let everybody know it's a building process.
That's the sounder. That's the sounder, Kyle, to change topics as we introduce you to ATK.
I'm familiar with the sounder. I do miss. That's the one thing we miss is boom. That was nice from Malzahn.
Yeah, we're not sure where we stand on boom. It's for the moment been pushed to the background.
I get that it's awkward, but speaking of things that are awkward, as the portal turns here in UCF world in the college football and basketball and sports world, let's keep to football with this part, obviously, because we'll get to more on other stuff later. But have you really felt like there's been a whole lot of loss in the transfer portal for UCF football here in this past spring, Trace?
No, not as we record, certainly not. The biggest name is Dylan Risk, but he knew that his time and his reps were limited in UCF starting quarterback picture, right? So he makes a decision that's best for him and his future and clears out the room a little bit for the remainder of spring camp. I think for him, it was just more a matter of a timing, but not a big loss for UCF in terms of losing Dylan Risk. And so far, the names, wish them all well. The one thing, though, because of the way the portal window works, all these guys got reps aren't even going to be on the team, right? So
yeah. Well, and I think the adage has been made, and I credit, Jeff Sharon, as he's the first one I've first heard say it, but everybody's been using it, right? The portal giveth and it taketh away, and it giveth opportunity to players, and it taketh depth from, college program rosters. I don't think there was anything that was really mind shaking about what turned over here too. And let's be honest, in this particular instance where Scott Frost is trying to reinvent a team for all intents and purposes, and the lack of a better way to describe it, frankly. If you can't make it here, you may not make it. And it's kind of a reverse Frank Sinatra. If you can't make it here, you can't make it anywhere right now. One could argue Trace Trylko. So, yeah, I didn't feel like there were any huge losses. But a lot of younger guys, who knows? We've seen people come back after initial efforts as well. I need to leave that on the table.
Yeah. So, a couple of days more for the portal. So there is that possibility, there's conversations happening between schools and players. So you never know what may transpire. But so far, I think UCF has fared pretty well in the transfer portal. We mentioned Dylan Risk leaving for the portal. Kyle, is this right now on paper a better quarterback room than UCF had a year ago? I know that's in hindsight. We know how KJ Jefferson didn't work out. There were high hopes for KJ Jefferson. So you've basically traded a KJ Jefferson for a Taven Jackson. Do you like this quarterback room?
I like him better than last year. I will give you that. You do mention that I have the benefit of hindsight. I will say this. Beyond Taven Jackson starting, I'm a little bit less confident in this room overall, though, compared to itself, what it used to be. I don't know. But listen, I understand, and I know I'm going to get tomatoes thrown at me for this because basically of one Saturday practice in the spring, which shouldn't really mean anything. But Dylan Risk did not have a good outing. And you and I talked about this after the show or after the game, after the practice, whatever you want to call it, that while it may not have been the driving factor in Dylan Risk's transfer, I think it was certainly a booming force, so to speak, which that might be an ironic use of the word boom. But anyways, yeah, I feel like that bad outing had something to do with it. But depth-wise, as far as comfort with the system and the surroundings, I think this group is less, but we're still looking at something that I think is going to work better than 24 did, don't you?
Well, I mean, if you start to compare it, right, there was high hopes for KJ Jefferson, and I think there's hopes with not a lot of proven track record for Taven Jackson. There was certainly a more of a record for KJ Jefferson. Jakari's back, right? Maybe you say he's better, maybe he thrives a little bit more in the Frost offense. And then Cam Fancher, who had some turnover issues at FAU, but maybe he's an upgrade over EJ Colson. Dylan Risk remains to be seen whether they pull another guy out of the portal, but I think there's some upside with Taven Jackson, but side to side, I think we knew what we were getting with KJ Jefferson. It just didn't materialize.
True. Remember this with Cam, though, at FAU. He spent a lot of that season dealing with concussion issues. That'll certainly throw off any quarterback's game. I'd look at his previous stop at Marshall and see how that all went first before we judge his overall performance. But stay confident in this. Well, there's at least one player out there that has an awful lot of confidence, Trace. When it comes right to it, who are the most important players? And I mentioned players with confidence. Certainly to me, one might mention Miles Montgomery as one, but who are your most important players on offense and defense heading into 2025?
Well, let me let you go first. Is yours on offense Miles Montgomery? Is that who you think is the most important? You mentioned him there.
Today, I do say that, yeah, because the moment the quarterback comes into any sort of struggle, how do you relieve them of that issue? You go to the run game. And remember your Frost offense 101, Trace. Who were the biggest players not named Mackenzie Milton on those squads, right? AK, Adrian Killen's doing his thing. The now late Otis Anderson. Those were big deals in those offenses.
Yeah, I think I think Miles Montgomery's one. He had some durability issues a season ago, but on your point though, when the quarterback struggles and you go to the running game, that's what happened last year, Kyle. And it was en route to a 4-8 season, and you had a big year from RJ Harvey. They've got to get QB1 right. So I think the obvious answer for me is whoever emerges as QB1, will pencil in Taven Jackson right now, has to perform, or I don't see how the Knights can not repeat the struggles of a season ago. What about defense?
Call me biased all you want. You see my Aaron Evans original painting of me as an offensive lineman behind me, but defensively, it starts with how John Walker returns, doesn't it? That push in the middle is what makes whatever happens behind him pass or fail on the season to try to lead UCF back to bowl game status. Don't you think so?
Yeah, I think the defensive line is key, and there's some returners there. John Walker coming off injury. I want to see how a Chasen Johnson does, and some of those names that are carryovers, from a season ago, whether they can emerge, whether they can thrive in the Alex Grinch defense. So that's what I'm looking for. But I think Walker's a good one. is he fully back? Will he be fully back and recovered and back to what Knights fans hoped for when he signed, on to play for UCF? So who are yours as you're watching? Who do you think are the keys? We've named a couple. Would love to hear from you in the comments. All right, it is that time of year as spring camp turns to the NFL draft. Share briefly, Kyle, you have covered the Jaguars for a number of years, so you follow NFL draft in a way many people have not had opportunity to do.
Listen, I had to throw out the ding there because there's been some talk about UCF players already on the Duval dive with my coverage of the Jaguars. But for me, RJ Harvey is actually a target, not just for the Jags, but I think he's going to go somewhere. If there's somebody, I'll say this much for this segment. If there's a UCF player I'm most confident in getting drafted, it's going to be RJ Harvey. And the other guys, listen, it's about erasing the narrative that came on both sides of the ball in 2024. Can they show enough that, hey, I'm a good player stuck in a bad situation? That's what it's going to come down to, Trace.
How high do you think RJ Harvey could go? I mean, I think, right, the consensus is that he is, if there's one player selected in the NFL draft, it's going to be RJ Harvey.
Mm-hmm.
How high do you think he could go? You've seen boards with him 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round even, but his stock has seemed to rise of late.
Yeah, and as it should have. He performed well in the combine as much as NFL draft analysts wanted to dodge it. I'm looking at you, Daniel Jeremiah, pointing out Ohio State running backs that RJ Harvey ran faster than in the 40, and you don't even bring it up. I said what I said, Trace Trylko, but the point is this. I've seen him mocked as high as 4 in my action. Personally, I think the depth of the Big 12 running back core in general, over and above the class as a whole, is problem 1 for a 4th round draft pick from him. I also think there's still some bias of UCF as villains because, and I'm going to air quote this, they claimed a championship. I know, Trace, it's crazy. It's 8
all these years later.
I see, you beat me to it. Yes, all these years later, that stuff, it's still in people's heads. It is nutty how often it still comes up when I'm walking about or whatever. And yet there we are. I still think RJ Harvey falls to the 3rd day for that very reason.
3rd day. Wow.
Yeah, but a high 3rd day, right? That's a 5th round pick, and he'll outperform that wherever he gets drafted. But speaking of outperforming, there's at least one player out there in the national scene who did not outperform what he was going to do for former UCF head coach Josh Heupel at Tennessee. What do you make of the Nico story, Trace Trylko?
Yeah, I think Josh Heupel did what he had to do, right, in that situation. And, we're not behind the scenes in everything, but it certainly doesn't seem like Nico trading for UCLA where careers go to die, right? In the SEC, he had an opportunity at a bigger payday, not only with Tennessee, I think, down the line, but also with pro prospects than he might have at UCLA. It's strange times, right? And who does it look like Tennessee's going to get? A former UCLA quarterback, right?
Yeah, the irony of it all. Hey, at least they're not getting Carson Beck, I guess, right? He's already in Miami, so he's off the board theoretically, I would think. That's one thing he's got working for him. But hey, this was due to come, and I've heard a lot of praise about Tennessee being the first school to kind of say no in these situations. I'm not saying Nico is the next Le'Veon Bell that changes the market for a position, but it could be altering in the field of college football, to say the least.
Well, one guy whose name at quarterback will find that he's on an NFL roster soon is Shedeur Sanders, who leaves University of Colorado with, what was it, a 13-12 record and 1 win against top 25 schools. But hey, retire the jersey, retire the number, as was the case as well for Travis Hunter. What do you make of that? More Deion Sanders shtick out in Boulder.
I mean, if you want to retire or put Deion Sanders up there, that's fine because of what he's done for the program and the way that he's done it. Shedeur being up there is nuts. Listen, I mean, Travis Hunter isn't up there yet. Is that something I should be angry? Hey, wait a minute. There's another player that played more than one position. Everybody remember Slash, Cordell Stewart, the big throw he had to beat wasn't that Boston College, I think, historically? Do our interns, Trace, even know who Cordell Stewart is? His
no,
retired.
I don't think the Suns intern army knows who Cordell Stewart is.
I can tell you, I'm pretty sure Bryson Turner doesn't know. And we'll leave that at that. So
the one thing I agree with Dion about is you should recognize people not after they've passed away. More, but I don't know that these two have earned that status, however their names are now inside the stadium. A guy whose name deserves to be plastered everywhere. He's Adam Eaton. He comes now with our silly game. Welcome back, Adam.
Thanks, Trace. I appreciate that. Before I get to that, you know what? You guys need to learn more about Florida Football Prep. They're your one-stop shop. If you need gear for your prep team, your little league team, maybe a team you're coaching, Florida Football Prep is where you want to go to. Check out their website, floridafootballprep.com. They have a podcast as well, by the way, the Quarterback's Room, available wherever you get your podcast. And they specialize in expertly conditioned football. So if you want to get your balls broken in before the season starts, floridafootballprep.com.
Is that the liner?
floridafootballprep.com is where you want to go. Kyle, welcome to the silly game. Here's how this works. Trace does not follow the order, so I need you to pay attention closely here. I'm going to give you a statement, and I'm going to give you two options. You must pick one of the two options. All right, you cannot sit on the fence like Trace likes to do. One of the two options must be selected, and this is a brand new game just because you're here, Kyle. I'm calling this game Bad Look or Good Look. I'm going to read you something. You tell me if it's a bad look or good look for the person or team I'm referring to. So you're first up, Kyle. Scott Frost commenting on the constant negotiations of NIL and college football. Is that a bad look or a good look?
I've heard the theory it's a bad look, but I'm leaning all the way in and not sitting on the fence. I think it's a good look. Listen, acknowledging this makes it clear that Scott Frost is aware of what's in front of him. He said, hey, listen, I'm learning the system. I'm getting into it. And at some point, he's setting it up to where Angry Knight fans might blame the game and not the proverbial player. In this case, the player in question being Scott Frost as the coach. But for me, I think it's a good look. Keeping fans in line with what the challenge is, controlling the narrative. Overall, I think it's a good look.
Well, Adam, I can see both sides.
Of course you can.
Of course I can. Hey, I like it. Even though there's some hypocrisy in it. If UCF could afford to play ball in those higher ranks, they would. But I like UCF with the chip on its shoulder, the little engine that could. And I agree, Kyle, that if you can rally Knight Nation to hate the system, the cartel years ago, the pollsters, the bowl commission, all of that stuff, anybody you can get us rallied against, that's a good thing. So I think his thoughts were candid and authentic, and I think he was spot on in what he was saying.
All right, next up, we're going to talk about this in a second, guys, but it's happened a few different times throughout the last 6 months. Big 12 teams paying big money to lure players from other Big 12 schools. Trace, is that a good look or a bad look?
I don't like it. And it began really for me with Texas Tech grabbing Lee Hunter in football. And that's where you started to see it. Of course, you can't just say you're going to pluck guys from the SEC and the Big Ten. So I know that's not the way it works. But Cincinnati, come on. I don't like it. It's a bad look raiding each school in the Big 12.
Long term, it's a bad look, and it's not close, Trace, because if you grab from your own conference is weaker, and you hurt your own case to try to make the CFP, which is allegedly the goal anyway. Take stuff from other conferences, make you weaker, make you stronger, keep your conference as strong as possible as you go ahead and buy your way to a Big 12 conference championship and get some actual clout for doing so. Listen, this Big 12 conference is thoroughly underrated. They're better than the ACC. I think that's a very safe statement. The most overrated conference in college football. Put yourself in a situation where you're head and shoulders above that blue blood fraternity, and then maybe, just maybe, when you start getting to some of the silly arguments that come up for the top playoff competing teams for the CFP, you inch yourself over the finish line. Instead, you steal from everybody else. You're the cream of the crop and a big fish in a small pond because you pulled assets from everyone else and left the lions without teeth. That's on you at that point. So yeah, it's a horrible.
Left the lions without teeth. I got to remember that one.
That's from the hip, Trace Trylko.
All right, last one, Kyle. I'll start with you. Seems like college sports these days aren't decided on the field as much as courtrooms. So players who have used their 4 years of eligibility who still enter the transfer portal, good look or bad look?
I think that's a good look. It's a good look for them because it shows, hey, I did what I did and I did my time and I got my degree from a school and I'm still a good enough player to have a year of success at college football over and above, it's a good look for me if I'm someone who's trying to get drafted into the NFL.
Silliness. Come on. Your eligibility is over. You're still entering the portal. Debo Coleman, I see you. Come on now. It's silliness. It's not a good look. Well, where are they going? What does it mean to enter the portal when you have no more eligibility? I don't get it.
Graduate transfer, right? I'm a mercenary that can help you. You know, these
everybody's a mercenary.
Well, that's true.
Except for you, Trace Trylko.
That's true.
Thank you, Adam. See you in a bit. Kyle, to you.
Hey, listen, as silly games go, that was pretty wonderful, but now it gets a lot less silly and somewhat serious. Mustafa Thiam is the now former UCF center, inks a deal with Cincinnati for a rumored $2 million. What are your thoughts, Trace Trylko?
It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money UCF doesn't have, right? I never thought that UCF would have him more than 2 seasons. And I thought, it really felt good as the time left in the portal was dwindling down that you could build around him. I really enjoyed watching him play over the course of the season. I felt like he bettered his game over the course of the season. Again, how do you turn down money like that for every fan that says, how dare they leave your program, your school, be 20 years old, or in his case, 18, and that kind of money flying around? I'd have been an FAU owl if they'd offered me $2 million to go down there, so the Knights have to rebuild. I mean, they're not the only school, right? What is it? 55% or something of college basketball has entered the 2,300 plus guys have entered the portal, and they won't all land somewhere. They won't all land somewhere better. That's the risk that they take. And for some, it will pay off in the case of Mustafa, but going to have to rebuild. And again, UCF isn't the only one, but it does feel like UCF is just the farm club for other schools. But Cincinnati, where are they getting this kind of money?
Well, he was shopped other places too, but I'll say this on Eric Lopez's behalf, since he's not here to say it, is based on a conversation I had with him though regarding Mustafa Thiam. He was clearly a member, or should have been clearly a member, of the all freshman team and wasn't. What about the concept that the coaches around the conference didn't vote for him to reduce his potential price? I'm just throwing it out there, Trace Trylko.
I think that may be a topic for Around the Kingdom Overtime, which you can find in your audio feeds. In Mustafa's goodbye statement, because of course you got to leave a goodbye statement, his last line was "Charge on forever a night." I don't know what's in his heart, Kyle Nash, but I find it a little disingenuous.
And I don't blame you for thinking so, but at the source of that is the guy that everybody thinks should be fired in Johnny Dawkins. That's where I'm going to come from, because at the end of the day, he is the guy that got him in the college ranks to give it a chance. Listen, whenever, of course, I inevitably go on to rule my sports empire, I will always remember Jeff Sharon for being the guy that got me on board for my first paid gig as a sports personality covering women's basketball to start with, of all things, right? And I mean, obviously,
are you friends? Was that?
We are, exactly. That's how
that doesn't seem friendly.
Well, yeah, that's the joke. But at the end of the day, this is the kind of effect that Coach Dawkins has on players. You don't forget Coach Dawkins, and that appreciation is what will keep players who play for him always a night in their minds.
I think we will remember Mustafa down the line for a little while, but there are going to be a lot of these other guys, Keyshawn Hall, Debo Coleman, that we very soon won't remember at all.
That's a fair point, to say the least. But something I may not remember shortly after it happens is talking baseball with you, Trace Trylko. What are
your favorite sport?
What are your takeaways after UCF winning 2 out of 3 against the number 15 ranked TCU Horned Frogs with what they're doing here? You're impressed by that, I'm sure.
Well,
yes.
Hey, a couple of things you said there. Number 15 team in the country at the time, TCU. Mm-hmm. They won the series. They hadn't won a series since at BYU more than a month ago, Kyle. So that found the Knights tumbling down the Big 12 standings. Top 12 schools make the postseason tournament in the Big 12. UCF was under that line. So they climbed back to where they need to be. Still a lot of games to be played, right? 3-game series, several home and away down the stretch here over the next couple of weeks for UCF. Important, though. They got 2 pitchers in the win on Friday. Russell Sandiford, Dominic Castellano held TCU to 1 run. And then on Saturday, every game moved up because of Easter holiday. On Sunday, Matt Saucer, 8 Ks in 8 innings. Alex Galvan comes in. What that means is you go to 2 pitchers on Friday, 2 pitchers on Saturday for a Knights bullpen that has been depleted over the course of this conference schedule. Huge. Now, can you do it again when you welcome in West Virginia, a top 10 ranked team? That's the question. Knights got to win series.
Yeah, and I can't speak for West Virginia, but I do know as we record this, they're up on FAU 9-1. So that's got to be something that at least shows that, hey, strengths and slumps are real in baseball. At least that's what Eric Lopez, the Sultan of Stickball, tells me. So getting back on a tear the way they did after they beat Florida early in the year, yeah, obviously they got cold. It happens. The yips, whatever hip, old-timey, I don't know if you can be hip and old-timey at the same time, whatever baseball terms you're going with. These are things that happen, and this could be the first step of the turnaround. On that point, I will meet you, Trace Trylko.
Well, softball. No, Eric Lopez here to wax poetically about softball. They lose 2 out of 3 to number 21 Oklahoma State. The game they won, though, Kyle, they scored 9 runs in the first inning in a 12-6 win. And it's hard to believe they lost that first game. 7 runs scored by Oklahoma State in the top of the 7th. But that was a 0-0 game. UCF had 1 hit, I think, through that point. It was a great pitching duel on that first game. And then UCF loses in extras. They hung tough. They still find themselves with one of the toughest schedules, conference, non-conference, in the country. They got Houston in this weekend. You have to win series in baseball, softball. You don't have to win everything. But if you win 2 out of 3, you're going to find yourself where you need to be. An important 2 out of 3 again this weekend for softball.
Yeah, absolutely. And for softball, I think Eric himself, the good Sultan, will agree that it's all about the heat of their bats that actually gets things going, right? Every loss and or tie, right? There was I think it was Ohio State.
There was a tie in there, yeah.
Yeah, 4 runs or less. When they break 4 runs, they win softball games, Trace. So if the bats get hot, they win a lot. Again, from the hip, if you want to keep that one. So, yeah, I think it's just a matter of getting some quality offense out there. The defense, I don't think it's a question. Not that they've, had shutouts every game for certain, but they certainly do a good job of keeping the other side from scoring. They just need to get on base and across the plate.
Yeah. Let's go back to the NFL and our prop bet time. This is where Elo normally comes something off the top of his head, but we kind of worked this out in advance. 2.5, Kyle. 2.5. That's the over-under number for UCF players in the NFL draft. We got 1, right? We feel pretty good about RJ Harvey. How confident are you about the rest of the Knights?
I feel confident that a second one, that be it Kobe Hudson or Mac McWilliams, raising his stock with an excellent combine performance and pro day performance, frankly, may sneak his way into, maybe not Mr. Irrelevant, but certainly in that later rounds, maybe 6 or 7. But Kobe Hudson, I think too much damage was done to his reputation with this past season through no fault of his own. And Pace, I just don't take him seriously as a candidate. PJ Adams hurting his stock at the combine. I'm putting my number at 2, which then has me by half, at an under for this particular prop bet here, Trace.
I'm going with the under as well. And Kyle, I'm going with 1. RJ Harvey, some undrafted free agents. And how about this one, Kyle? You ready? Jacksonville, because there's always got to be a night in Jacksonville. I'm going to take Jacksonville to take RJ Harvey, 3rd or 4th round, the only night selected in this year's NFL draft. We'll see how it plays out.
Immediately, I'll say that, but I digress.
Let's bring back in Adam. Adam, what we get right, what we get wrong? Educate us, please, sir.
All right, here's what I got for you. You guys missed Brandon Jacob, defensive back, into the portal from UCF. He just got here in January, so goodbye to Brandon Jacob already.
Once a night.
Always
forever a night.
April 25th is the day that the football portal closes. You guys are talking NFL draft. One of the best out there at the Athletics, Dane Brugler, has RJ Harvey going in the 4th round to New England, and Mac McWilliams in the 6th round to the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's according to Dane
Something's good.
Brugler. You guys mentioned Joey Aguilar. He's the quarterback who is now leaving UCLA to go to Tennessee. Trace, you called him a former UCLA quarterback. Can you be a former UCLA quarterback if you never actually played for UCLA? I'll let you decide that one. 2,100 players are in the
Gabriel
Division
is.
You beat me to it, Trace Trylko. The sock hawker is definitely an example.
2,100 players in the Division I portal. And Kyle, you'll be happy to know the internet says, yes, you can be both hip and old-timey in a fashion or lifestyle context.
There's the
Thanks,
knowledge.
I
Thank
didn't
you,
know
Adam.
that I would
One
get
more
the
thing.
answer to.
One more thing, Kyle, before we go. Thank you, Lee Corso. Going to miss a long-time ESPN college football personality. Grateful to have had the opportunity to talk with Lee Corso when UCF hosted game day some years back.
Yes.
He'll be signing off this fall. One final appearance when he turns 90 in this college football season. Look for new episodes midweek, every week on the Sons of UCF YouTube channel. Also on the Sons podcast feed, where you'll also find Around the Kingdom Overtime. For Kyle Nash and Adam Eaton, I'm Trace Trylko. Thanks, everyone, for joining us for this week's Around the Kingdom.